Hey, friends, and welcome back to I'd Like to Unsubscribe. So, today is episode 9, and this episode is really for the strong ones, the smile through it ones, and the you're so brave crew. And you know who you are. See, in this episode, Britt and I want to chat about unsubscribing from really being resilient all the damn time. Because if one more person praises our strength, well, we just might scream. And we're talking about rage and the rage that is sort of sacred and hot and just this completely justified anger and the kind that simmers under every I'm fine text that we send, but really explodes after your third canceled plan in just a few days. See, chronic illness can often feel like a full-time job and one that we didn't apply for. And it robs us of our time and our energy, our identity, and our plans. And we want to pull back the curtain on what it's like to be exhausted by everyone else's idea that you should be resilient all the damn time. Because that you're so strong culture, that's actually what is exhausting. Sometimes we don't want to be strong. We want to be soft. We want support. We want to scream into a pillow and not feel guilty about it. In this episode, Britt and I want to break down what anger actually does to the body and how unprocessed rage can actually turn into a full on flare. Yes, you heard that correct. And why feeling mad doesn't make you broken, it actually makes you human. So stick around for some personal stories and practical tools and a few hilariously cathartic ways to unleash all of that strong culture fury. Of course, we're going to do this all safely. So if you've ever wanted to throw your pill organizer across the room, well, gang, this episode is for you. So let's get unhinged together.
What if the life you planned vanished overnight? For Marisa and Britt, it was painful chronic conditions without cures. We lost everything: our health, independence, careers, and even our sense of self. But in the wreckage, we found something unexpected: a chance to rebuild. Welcome to I'd Like to Unsubscribe, the podcast for anyone feeling stuck, lost, traumatized, or just straight up over it. This isn't about surviving illness or trauma. It's about ditching the toxic beliefs holding you back and even daring to dream again. We're bringing real talk, hard-earned wisdom, lots of sarcasm, and practical tools to help you rise. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll remember, even in the darkest moments, hope is still alive. Hey friends, welcome back to I Like to Unsubscribe, the podcast where we hit cancel on pretending everything is all right while we sip coffee in a burning house. Today's episode, buckle up, babe, because it's called I'd Like to Unsubscribe from Being Resilient All the Damn Time. Because guess what? We're angry, and you probably are too.
Oh, if that isn't the truth, Britt. And everyone listening, see, like Britt and I don't see anger as like this dirty word, right? You aren't a terrible person if you feel really frustrated or angry sometimes at just the absolute absurdity that chronic illness and autoimmune disease can bring into our daily lives. Because let's be real, it brings in a lot of dumpster fires. And today we really want to examine how to rework the anger and use it without letting it eat us alive, because that's when it turns into symptoms and flares. Now, we talked a little bit about anger in episode 1, and that was really how it relates to grief. But today we want to also touch on that myth of constant strength, which is a message I feel like we hear and see a lot online in the chronic illness and health communities. And listen, it's all be resilient, build resilience. And yes, I agree with that. Resilience is essential in life, especially with one with a chronic illness. But we need to acknowledge that resilience also has its own breaking point. Because if we are only allowed to be praised in the moments where people are thinking we are resilient or brave or strong, we sort of get locked into this prison of operating from only strength and resilience all the time. And that gives us zero room or bandwidth for softness, for really feeling those moments of hard or even full on like mental and physical flare collapse.
Oh, yeah. And y'all, I picked a bad month to give up swearing because if there is ever a time to have had to add an expletive icon to our podcast, it would have been this episode because clearly we have some feelings, some deep feels about being sick. About being sick moms and sick wives and sick friends and sick dreamers. And to use Marissa's phrase, how much it freaking blows, right? Like, man, we love that phrase now. There will be t shirts. But
Mhm.
seriously, there is this development of this almost toxic resilience culture that's happening where all we're doing now is praising people for being strong and have walked through fire. Like, when's the last time we read a book about a girl that like had a really hard time and then she actually like felt like she had a hard time and then was really sad about it? No, like we read crazy books about people with supernatural strength and we're like, oh man, why aren't we like that too? So it's this like, you have to be strong. But when we collapse from our attempts at permanent strength, where is the text fury of people telling us, wow, how strong you are then too? No one wants to look at or acknowledge or talk about the actual pain that we have sometimes.
Mhm.
No one can be resilient, strong, and courageous 24/7 because we're not stinking robots. Like, even Jesus was, he wept and he rested and he felt sorrow. And y'all, listen, if the literal Son of God needed space to fall apart and took that space many times in his life, don't we have the permission to do the same?
Yes, girl. Like that right there is a very important point because you're absolutely right. He literally distanced himself and took time for himself, which in our culture is like you're just not supposed to do that. When I think about it, it's really bizarre that we are living in a world right now where adults, as adults, we have to actually give ourselves permission to feel an emotion that we're experiencing. Like, no. There's no more buying into the strong girl lie. And listen, today we are unsubscribing from holding the entire world together with a smile and our heating pad and just going to keep on trucking along.
Oh, yeah, because being chronically ill is infuriating. I mean, it robs you of your time, your energy, your plans, your ability to just exist without strategizing everything from showering to childcare. There is this like invisible labor, a mental calculus per se, of being sick and still showing up. Every single outing requires this like strategic plan for like, what if I need to go to the bathroom this many times, and when should I exit, and then what medicine should I bring, and then I'm gonna have a few on me just in case things go bad, and how to best conserve my energy but still actually enjoy my time, and how long can I interact before I need to Irish goodbye and then just get out of there, which is Marissa's favorite thing to do, by the way, y'all.
Yes.
So if you
Yes.
invite her to a party and wonder where she is, she gone.
I
So
left.
yeah.
hmm
So people see us, we're smiling and we're interacting for like, 15 minutes, but then they don't see the 3-hour crash that I just had when I'm home and I'm like in the fetal position and I'm like, I just need a moment to myself. I'm fine, right? Because honestly, oh my goodness, if one more person tells me that I am brave or strong without offering to take my kid to school or do my laundry, I'm going to flip a freaking table.
So, Britt, I feel like we need to normalize this, right? Because rage is a part of living with a chronic illness. And I feel like sometimes people hear like that word rage, right? It just sounds so angry and terrifying because we can equate it to some really scary stories. I'm talking about like the rage in a chronic illness sense of like this seeps into so many areas of your life. There is such a level of frustration all the time. It's like every day it's doing something in some level of your life, and that frustration just builds and builds and builds, right? And it
Mm,
has to come out somewhere because when it doesn't, and we've talked about this in some of our other episodes, it comes out in symptoms, okay? And we don't need any more of that.
no.
But the fact is, chronic illness strips away parts of us and our daily life, okay? And we are rarely allowed in society to actually talk about how angry we might feel. And I mean, yeah, like I talk about this openly when I'm in my counseling session, but I'm very unlikely to just stroll up to a brunch with some newer friends that I met and be like, yeah, I kind of just wanted to like throw my fist through a wall because I flared yet again and I got stuck in bed for a week and I missed a complete week of life, like
Yeah. And then you
that's
sip a
probably not going to go over
mimosa.
real well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, chronic illness is a thief. And when we examine it closer, what that rage can look like, it can just be even snapping at your spouse or your best friend or disassociating or even just laying in bed and not responding to anyone and maybe quietly deleting that text from someone that says, oh, everything happens in life for a reason. And when we look at the psychology behind rage under that umbrella of chronic illness, when we don't process it, again, it can often show up as chronic tension, muscle pain, tightness, feeling depressed, and even full on flare symptoms. And for those of you listening who want to look at this through a faith filled lens, we see this also in the Bible. The Bible never condemns honest lament. David, Job, and Jeremiah, they all raged and questioned, and their stories were still seen as sacred. And they openly questioned and lamented and were still seen as inspired individuals. Like, I think that that's something to really keep in mind. They weren't like cast aside and ignored and shut off.
Yeah. Yeah, because God never designed us, right, to hold all of this by ourselves. I mean, God's word, and whether you believe in Christianity or not, I think these are just really deeply beautiful principles. God's word actually encourages us to be vulnerable and honest in approaching Him and others. And even in the depths of sorrows and heightened emotions, He's not saying, can you please just be a little less loud about that? Can you just you're like harshing my vibe a little bit. He's like, no, bring it up. And now I think it's important that we look deeper to the bottom of the well where all the anger is coming from, because we can just call it anger and leave it there. But why? Why are we this angry? And we talked about sometimes it can be grief. We talked about it in the first couple episodes. Anger sometimes masquerades as a deep grief. But for me, often what I find lurking beneath the surface is injustice.
Mm.
And man, as we've talked about it in past episodes, a lot of people with autoimmune conditions and chronic illnesses are just kind of your classic type A personalities. Like, we're really fun to be around, like life of the parties. We're go-getters. We are super high achievers. We run businesses. We build things. We pursue truth and purpose. Like, it is our full-time job, right? And for many of us, we're also full bleeding hearts. Like, give me a thumbs up emoji on Instagram about this. Like, I am a bleeding heart. When I see pain, I want to fix. No, I need to fix it. It's not like, oh, I'd really like to. Like, I need to fix this right now. We see injustice and we hear about it and we have to speak up. Like, this is our mission. This is why we are here. This is a part of our blood.
Yeah. And that is a fact about Brittany. And I think it's for both of us. Like, our stomachs literally turn at injustice. Like, we want to fight for what's right. It's just embedded for us. We want to fight for people, right? And then suddenly we get sick and an autoimmune diagnosis just walks in and it feels like nothing's right anymore. And it kind of feels like a betrayal of who you are and what you stand for. And it can feel really unfair and it could be extremely infuriating.
Like, there needs to be bigger language, because if y'all are watching on YouTube, I don't know if you can see the eye bags, but I literally have been crying all morning about injustice. Like, I'm a mom and I have a neurodivergent child and she really needs me. And Marisa, like, you care for your mom. There are real lives that are depending on us showing up in full strength every day. And yet, we wake up some days feeling like we are unable to lift our own heads. And that sense of injustice, of like, are you kidding me? Can just boil your blood. It boils mine. And when that righteous anger doesn't have a place to land, it turns us instead. It like turns on us and turns us into rage monsters. It's at
Mhm.
ourselves, it's at the people we love, it's at the people at the, Target checkout line, and honestly, often even towards God.
Man, that Target checkout line is not a good spot for it. No. But honestly, though, that fury that you're talking about, Britt, like it's coming from the same fire that we once used to fight for good, like before we were diagnosed. And now it has nowhere to go. And I think that right there is the danger. But it's also where that invitation lives, because I think that rage can actually intersect with purpose, and meaning that we can harness that fire, right? So anger is sort of this messenger. And when we feel like someone or something has been violated and there's been an injustice, it rises to the top. And in those moments, we can look at the rage and anger like an alarm that is screaming that something here needs to change. And right there is an opportunity where that anger can then become the fuel when it's channeled into a purpose.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I get it now. Like, all right, I have this anger. I need somewhere for it to go because when I let it sit in me, like Marissa's been saying, it turns into flare, it turns into symptoms. So what do we do with it? What do we do with that righteous anger? And I say righteous, like this is not bad anger. Don't feel bad about it. This is the kind of anger that rises up in us when we see someone being hurt or abused. It is the same style anger. So how do we give it purpose so it doesn't eat us alive? And, so I think like here's some things we can do. This is how we channel it. Let's push it towards advocacy,
Mm.
not implosion, right? Like use it, use that fire, because in Matthew 21:12-13, it talks about Jesus flipped tables in righteous anger. It was premeditated. It wasn't like he just walked in and was having a bad morning and like had a bad bowl of porridge. I don't know what they ate back then, but he sat down, made a whip premeditatedly, and was like, let's get this going. Like he was angry. And because that's what makes this holy anger, it's where we aim for it to be. It's what allows us to actually have the transformation. We use it, we harness it, and we go for that purpose.
Yeah. And I want to focus on that word transformation. That was a good one. And let's think about what can become the product of those emotions when we're feeling it, right? So anger can be holy when it becomes fuel for justice or storytelling or even creating a safe space for those who aren't able to speak up. If your fire for justice is still burning, use it to lift someone else up, right? Like volunteer maybe for a nonprofit or chronic illness organization, help someone that's newly diagnosed, write that blog post, send an encouraging direct message, start the community group that you really needed and wish existed when you were first sick. See, we are actually allowed to rewrite the script. We don't have to be the martyrs of this invisible strength, but let's actually spin that anger that's fueling inside of us and become the truth tellers and the bridge builders. And instead of letting it stew and causing all of these other symptoms and this frustration because it has no outlet.
Yeah. Yeah, cuz it's this, and we know this often. When we are sitting in our rooms for many days at a time, it's not like at some point we're like, this feels good and I feel better about this. It
I love
doesn't
those
get
days. Great.
easier. Maybe it's just me. But like it ends up being harder. The more I am focusing on my symptoms and my issues, the worse I'm going to feel about them. So when we take the
Mhm.
focus off of just us and our pain, and we use this in our experiences to serve others, that rage starts to shift and it's going to move, and it has some place to go and release. It turns into power. And then through that, y'all, so many times it turns into healing. And is that not what we're looking for? It turns into connection. And isn't that what we need so much, because we feel so isolated and we don't feel like people understand us. And ironically, that's when the rage doesn't own us anymore. See, that's the whole point, is that when we get angry and we don't put it somewhere, we get owned by it. But when we put it somewhere, we now own it.
That's a perfect distinction, right? Because Britt, I think like especially for women, rage and anger is often seen as like really unladylike, like we shouldn't get really angry, or even unholy. But if we can
Mhm.
actually recognize and name our emotions, like you said, we can heal from it, we can use it for transformation because it's not about denying how unfair any of this life is when dealing with an illness. Like we know it's about turning our cry for justice into a hand that reaches back for someone else who's still in the pit. And that's holy work. And we need to look at that as holy work.
Yes, because yeah, autoimmune diseases are rising, and there are so many people in various stages of the pit. They're at the, precipice of it, ones that have fallen down, ones that are trying to, climb back up. Like there's always going to be somebody there. And again, like we've talked in other episodes, you don't have to be perfect or fully healed in order to reach back, like Marissa said,
Mhm.
and like help somebody up. Like we just have to have a smidge more strength and to say no. And honestly, I find so many times when I don't feel like I don't have the strength and I can't be there, Marissa will be drowning and I'm drowning too and I've got nothing to give. But then in talking to her, when I'm like, no, like we've got this, it's lifting me back up too. Like, remember that. And so, there's this quote. No, it's an anthem. It's a full dang anthem. It's from Zandashi Brown. And it says, I dream of never being called resilient again in my life. I am exhausted by strength. I want support. I want softness. I want ease. I want to be amongst kin, not patted on the back for how well I take a hit or for
Mhm.
how many. I have chills. I got me chills.
I have chills too right now. I have goosebumps.
Ugh. When I first read that quote, I obviously cried because, hello, it's me. But I also felt it in my bones. It was like someone had read my soul's diary
Mm.
because we're angry that we've had to be so freaking strong all the time. And resilient sounds like a compliment until you realize it means that you've had to survive things that you should never have had to survive in the first place. And I want to fall apart sometimes. And I'm exhausted so often. And and there's so many times where I'm just so focused on the pain that I can't get out of my own way. And there is grace for rest and there is self-care and we preach it all the time. But your imperfect host still feel and we are still working through this. So there must be this grace, but what I really want to be is a damsel in distress sometimes. I want to be some stinking Disney princess character. And I know that's probably not what you're supposed to say in this day and age, in this I'm supposed to be this strong, independent woman. But this is my truth. I don't want to have to be strong all the time. And it makes me super angry.
No, I agree. I mean, I think, we have been gifted with the opportunity to have both, right? Like you said, some days we do feel really strong and empowered and we can, just sort of make it through. Like I absolutely have days like that. But then there's days where, I don't want another badge of resilience. I actually want relief. I don't need you to come up with a solution. It's, like when Brit will call me and someone will just, or someone just says to me, like, it's okay. Like, let's just talk about it. Let's just get it out in the open. Like, we don't need an answer right now, right? We don't need to come
Home.
up with 20 solutions. We're just going to express it and we're just going to sit in it for a minute. Okay. But until that day comes, like, let's at least tell the truth about how heavy this strength really is, and this like culture of, well, you got to be just pushing strength and resilience 100% 24/7, show it to everyone. So in this episode, we want to go and share actually some tangible ways that you can turn the rage and that anger into purpose. But really quickly, let's just take a look at it. I want to talk about what anger actually does to the body. We kind of went over this a little bit in episode 1, but when you're chronically angry and it has no outlet, it has nowhere to go, it's just sitting in your body, well, that actually increases your cortisol and your adrenaline. And over time, that weakens your immune system and it increases inflammation. Like, hello, for those of us like me that have lupus and Brittany with thyroid and our autoimmune friends, like, we don't need any more inflammation in our body. And suppressed anger is also linked to higher blood pressure and depression and anxiety. And hello, I'm here for this one, digestive issues.
Oh,
Okay. And
bless.
chronic pain. Britt has known me for years. When I am stressed and angry for, and it's going on days or weeks, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the hospital with digestive issues. Like, that's where it sits for me. And for you, it might sit in a migraine, right? Or it might sit in severe back pain. Like, it's sitting in your body somewhere. And studies show that repressed anger has also been correlated with things like an increased risk for heart disease and an increased risk for autoimmune flares, right? Which kind of makes me think about, there's sort of this saying in the chronic illness community that you become a collector. When you have one, it's not uncommon for more to show up over time. Well, maybe that's part of this anger and stress over long periods of time that has not found an outlet. Okay. That's just something I think about when I hear this. Because I think when you're stuffing it down, it turns you into basically this human pressure cooker. And eventually something has to explode. And like Britt said about Target and the Target checkout line, it's usually at the worst possible time. So, like,
Yes.
I can apologize to anyone who's ever stood behind me and maybe my comfort food like cookies or chocolate during a flare up. I can guarantee you that my anger has come out at absolutely the worst time and to people that did not deserve it at all.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I want to publicly apologize to the cookie I devoured right before this episode because I was so mad. Oh, yeah. Because let's not forget, anger isn't just physical, it also fractures relationship. It's not just this internal thing, it's super external. So when it's unprocessed,
Mm.
like we do, it leaks out as sarcasm. It leaks
Mhm.
out as resentment and this bitterness and this like flat out withdrawal into ourselves.
Yeah, and you just hit it. Like, if we let it rot, anger grows into bitterness, and bitterness is literally poison to the body. If we can't heal, our souls are choking on resentment. And I think that's the difference between this holy anger and just being like an absolute like hot mess with like no solution, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And y'all, we promise always keep it real with you and tell stories that are healed, but we don't necessarily want to share. But we're going to get into a few of those. But right now, we're going to take a break to hear from our amazing sponsors.
Trying to figure out what's triggering your symptoms but can't put your finger on it? Try Folia, a health tracking app to help you connect the dots and get to the bottom of what's going on. Download Folia Health free in the App Store with invite code LupusChick. Folia is the one app to track it all. Learn more at foliahealth.com/lupuschick. That's FOLIA health.com/lupuschick. Ever wish you could be paid to share your chronic illness story? The Insiders, insights like things you know, matches you to paid interviews, focus groups, and surveys to share your experiences. Visit theinsiders.com to check out our current opportunities for lupus patients.
Are you experiencing symptoms of lupus or feeling alone on this journey? The Lupus Foundation of New England is here to help you. They're dedicated to supporting those living with lupus, offering education, resources, and a community to help you navigate the journey. From learning about symptoms and testing to upcoming events and research, the Lupus Foundation of New England has you covered. Visit lupusne.org and connect with others who truly understand. You don't have to do this alone. Visit lupusne.org. That's lupusne.org today. Hey, y'all, welcome back. So here, you ready for some truth telling? Because this one's going to hit it. So I know many of you have every reason to feel super angry, and the holy kind, the justified kind. And we made a promise to you, like we said, to be honest and to share healed stories. And I often regret having made that promise to you, because I don't want to come across as so broken. But I know that you've gone through it too, and you are in pain and you're angry, and y'all hashtag me too. So let me just explain some of my anger, because I want to just keep it real. So here is my 2020. And it really started off super strong, because January 1, you're going to find me doing a maternity shoot. And I'm taking all these beautiful pictures in the park, and I felt beautiful. I was in my 3rd trimester with my miracle babe, and it had been a rough pregnancy. They had told me he may have trisomy 19, and the fact that we were assuming that we were going to have a really beautiful and healthy baby at this point in the process, it was just one of the greatest days of my life. And so let's just jump, 2 months later, and we're March 2020. And if anybody remembers, something like, I think it was called COVID started at that time. And so everything went crazy, right? So find me in a mask at a hospital about to give birth. My mom and doula were not allowed to be in the room with me. Only my husband was able to come. The hospitals had completely shut down. So I have this guy who doesn't even have my body parts sitting next to me being like, I don't know, I'll help you out. But I needed my mom. And it was a really big loss for both of us, because I had not given birth to our first kid, our daughter. And this was just such a really special moment. So we leave the hospital. Our son is born. He's healthy, thank God. We go home. But unfortunately, we have to keep coming back to the hospital because my babe's bilirubin numbers are not high enough. And simultaneously, the VPK for my 5-year-old, then daughter, shuts down. She is now home permanently, adjusting to life with her new brother. I am trying to recover from my rather large baby's birth, and I literally cannot sit down without a donut under my butt because I'm in so much pain. And apparently, breastfeeding is way harder than I thought it would be. So that was a fun little thing. And then, like everybody, we are told we're going to have to go into lockdown for at least a month. And so now I have no help with my newborn. None of those, pop buys with friends, postpartum, that have a casserole and they're going to hold your baby while you take a nap because you're exhausted. It's now just us. We're in lock-in. And then on Mother's Day 2020, my newborn turns blue in my arms. He cannot catch his breath, and we start this long journey in and out of Nemours Hospital for the next couple months because he was born with his trachea too narrow. And that was terrifying as a new mom in the middle of a respiratory pandemic. And my husband is a firefighter, and he attended a work event, and he comes home the next day and says, hey, I was exposed to COVID. So he has to move out of the house, and I have my newborn and my 5-year-old, and we're trying to just not get exposed because clearly we can't have him get sick. And on day 12 of our quarantine from each other, my son wakes up with an extremely high fever. So I have to bring him to the pediatrician. I literally have to hold him down while they shove that awful stick up his nose. He's just a few months old and he's COVID positive. Then the whole family gets it. And as usual, I get it the absolute worst. I, no joke, had a fever for 14 days straight. I could not get out of bed. I was still trying to breastfeed him, but my body started to shut down from the illness and I'm starting to lose production. And I was so devastated because, again, this is a miracle baby and I really wanted to be able to do all these like sacred mom things. And so one side shuts down in my breast and the other side shuts down. But I, no joke, just like summoned this like mother creator energy inside and I screamed at my body, you will turn back on. And like, I swear they just instantly did. They're like, yep, sorry about that. So I'm thinking, whew, okay, this has sucked, but we survived COVID. So like, what's the worst that can happen now? 2 weeks later, my marriage imploded. Simultaneously, my daughter had to start her first year of kindergarten with a mask on, and I couldn't walk her into school. And that was just she has a really hard time separating. So it was just so complicated and messy. And all of the progesterone, like the chill hormone left my body, and with it took all my chill. I then developed severe postpartum anxiety. My now 8-month old had to then go in for surgery. And there's truly nothing like looking at your baby under full anesthesia with a tube down his throat. My autoimmune disease went off the rails. It was uncontrollable, and I couldn't bear any weight in my arms, so I could barely hold him. I could only hold my baby when I sat down because I couldn't have any weight. I developed severe insomnia and would never sleep past 2 a.m. at all. I was under 100 pounds, so to keep up with breastfeeding was basically becoming impossible. And my dream to breastfeed my little man until he was 1 year old, it was just not going to happen. And then I had my baby before babies, my precious pup. He also, at the same time, got diagnosed with cancer. And we thought we would have some more time with him. We were giving him medication, but we found him dead on the floor January 1, 2021 at 7 a.m. Whew. So it was quite a year. So when my husband mentioned going together to this like trampoline place that had this dodgeball pit, I was like, okay, this could be fun. And I think we need some more of that. But as I started grabbing, the balls, like the soft, fuzzy style ones, for the, supposedly fun dodgeball pit, I'm tossing them at him. But then like the throws started to get a little stronger, and then like a little more stronger. And then like I'm like baseball throwing, like I'm stepping and throwing, right? Like I was throwing them and throwing them and throwing them until I was seeing red. It's like something had like popped in my brain, and I had had enough. And all the anger and feelings that I'd been trying to suppress to just survive finally all just came to the surface. And y'all, they clobbered me. I was a mess. I couldn't get them to politely go back in their box and shove them down. My injustice-o-meter was wailing, and I needed a place to become unhinged. And I then started these rage sessions when my daughter would go to school and my son would take a nap. And I would put my earphones in, and I would grab an old tennis racket, and I would slam it again and again and again into my bed. I mean, just with all of my strength. And then I would take a pillow and I would scream into it until I basically, my voice and my body were exhausted. And then I would cry out all the tears I had in my body. And then I would take a nap because I was exhausted from that. And I would get back up. The anger had to go somewhere, or it was going to destroy me and my family. And I still feel the injustice of that time because it's not a super fun story to tell. And there are moments that I still grab a pillow and I let it out. I go on fast walks in the woods and I pray and I yell to my creator and I yell to the trees and I scream to God and I scream for peace. I scream for us, the injustice of those living with autoimmunes. I scream for mercy. I scream because I'm so heartbroken over the pain of this world. And then I get back up.
So, Britt, I remember all of this because you and I met shortly after you had PAX and you got COVID, and Josh couldn't be with you because of the everyone had to be separated at that time, when they had COVID and the whole marriage thing. And I just remember all of it, and it was so hard. And even hearing it all again, it's like it's so emotional, and I just think, could you imagine, like, in that moment, if someone just comes in and is like, "You got this, girl. Everything in life happens for a reason." Like, I
Yeah.
don't even wanna know what you would have done, right?
Yeah.
Like, and people are going through things like this all the time. I mean, you and I talk about it all the time. Like, pretty much every person that we know in our life is having like something heavy going on, or they're just
Yeah.
coming out of a really heavy season, or they're just going into a really heavy season, right?
Yeah.
And so I think to approach it with, you got this, you can do it, like I am all for the encouragement and the being the cheerleader, but also like you need to keep it real and like this is really scary and this is really hard and there is no quick solution. We're not going to bed tonight and your dog is going to be okay and you guys don't have COVID anymore and everything's fine in your marriage. Like no, like these are major things happening, right?
Yeah.
Um I love the dodgeball story. I had a similar thing happen when I was in New York, and my friend invited me. She got these tickets to go to a rage room after COVID was kind of like loosening up, and we were able to leave again. And I had never been and to anything like that. And the funny thing is, I really try hard not to get like I'm terrible because I like stuff all the symptoms down, but to kind of get that anger up because within 30 minutes of getting angry, right? I have a fever, I get sores breaking out, I get a rash, like it's not cute. So my friend brings me to this rage room and I'm like, "Oh man, I wish that I could have come here like on a day that like I was really pissed off about something." But that day I was actually pretty like calm. And so we go into our full suits and we put the big like helmets on with the glass shield, and she's a lot stronger than me, so she's like beating to death this old television and this old like computer monitor, and I'm sort of getting into the swing of things, and I grab these wine glasses that they had because they were light, but I could really fling them across the room, and then just
Mm.
hearing them shatter into 1,000 pieces felt so beautiful to me for some reason.
Mhm.
And yeah, girl, I just start chucking them and like faster and faster, and I feel like all of it, right? And then I see a crowbar in the corner. I can barely lift a crowbar, but the anger that had stirred up at that point, like
Yeah.
I just took that crowbar and I demolished an entire line of wine glasses, and it felt amazing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we have these places nowadays that like we can just go and have fun and laugh and be silly and be crazy and get all of our stress out, and we're not like hurting anyone, we're not doing anything bad, right? Um so I think it's really important that we also talk about like, yeah, my friend just gave me a pep talk and I just thought, everything's going to be fine. And I went to bed and I woke up fine the next day. Like, no, it's a bunch of crap. That is
Yeah.
not what happens. Um, but I think, we have to talk about how do we find healthy ways that we can be a little unhinged, right? So we don't wind up in jail. And here are a couple ways that Britt and I have talked about, like letting it out without like burning your entire life down. And they can be really simple. Like Britt was talking about, like put your head in your pillow or in a towel and like scream and like move your body. Even like she said, a fast walk, like it can help just release that energy. I love to do like these dancing videos in my room that are kind of intense, and I get them on YouTube, and it just lets out like that extra energy. And I mean, listen, you can also obviously go to therapy, go to counseling. Like we think something like that is essential. We both do it. Um, but I think, it looks different for every single person. Also turning it into art. A lot of you who have listened, like I'm an artist. I love to paint. I love to draw. Britt and I both like to write, and you could do something like that, say for 15 minutes straight, just like write it all out. Don't censor yourself. Don't self edit when you're writing. Use color or language that reflects like that heat that you're feeling inside. Let it come out, let it be really messy, and let it be really raw. And I think just keep thinking like tell your story, right? Telling your story is okay, and you can do it loudly and you can do it without shame, because anger often stems from being silenced, right? Or being dismissed. So uncensoring your journaling and like tell, or maybe you're someone that likes to make videos, and maybe you have, a vlog, right? Or your TikTok or whatever it is, right? And you can tell your truth publicly as like, as that act, and maybe just recording a 60-second voice memo or a video where you say one truth that you've never spoken out loud. And here's the thing, like, same with writing, because we hear about this a lot with like different writing exercises. Write it all down, or like me and my friends have done, like we've written things down and we've put it in a fire together, or we've written on things on a balloon and we've like released it. But even if you make that video or you write those things down, like no one ever has to see it. You don't have to put it online, and you can throw that piece of paper out, right? Like, it's just actually getting it out of your body.
Yeah.
Um, and then you can also do something tangible in the sense of like, maybe you want to build something, right? Like Britt and I are also builders, like start a nonprofit. I mean, all of this came out of a blog that I started 20 years ago because I wanted to get my feelings out, and I wanted to connect with people that were also going through the exact same thing I did. And luckily for me, blogs were just coming out on the internet. So it was great. But start a nonprofit, start your, Instagram brand page or whatnot of something that you're really passionate about. Like start a support group, whether it's online or in your community, write a blog post, maybe even plan and host an event that you wish existed when you were at your lowest, maybe, right after you were newly diagnosed or you were really frustrated. Like there's other people out there that are feeling exactly how you did and also need that. So anger isn't just about like being like, it isn't about destruction. I think that is where, for a lot of people, that's where their mind goes, like that it's something so bad. But it's also about this urge to rebuild and to use it to build something beautiful. Um, I think there's just so many different ways that you can sort of streamline and take what you're feeling. Or you could also do something really simple like I do. I go into my car and I drive up the mountain where no one's around, and I blast like 80s rock or Metallica, and I scream and I sing really loud in my car because I think that that's holy too. And then by the time I get home, like I feel like I actually do. I feel calm. I feel like it's out of my body now, and I could actually start processing and moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, and I love that. And not that I would do the 80s rock, but a good emo. A really strong screamo, that's my jam. And we're not saying that you have to make the chronic illness part of you the biggest part of your life. Like it doesn't have to be chronic illness related. It's just something that's going to feed that part of you that feels like I need to build something. So it could
Mhm.
be an Etsy page. It could be
Mhm.
macrameing owls. I don't know what your flavor is. Like it can be whatever it is that makes you feel like I'm creating something. I am bringing beauty. I am bringing justice. I am bringing strength into the world that starts to help you rebuild. And we're going to talk about the stuff more in later episodes. But whatever you do, whatever that looks like, just stop pretending that you're not mad.
Yeah.
Like that, if you take away anything here, just don't pretend you're not mad because pushing it down doesn't make it go away, and nor does it make you any stronger. We don't need to be more stronger than we actually are. All it does is just make you more sick.
It really does. Physically, mentally, emotionally. I mean, and the reality is anger, when it's harnessed properly, right? It is proof of life. It is your fight instinct. It's your body saying, I still care. And that's not wrong. It's not bad. It's actually sacred.
Yeah, absolutely. So if today you are feeling over it, like the rage is bubbling and the only thing keeping you from snapping is a chocolate bar and Jesus, yeah, we see you today.
So we're here to just tell you, let it out, feel it. Don't let it rule you. This is part of healing. I mean, Britt and I have done this over and over again because, like we said, chronic illness is frustrating all of the time. But you don't have to be so damn resilient 24/7. You can have healthy rage. and then you can rest. And you can allow the frailty of your humanity actually wash over you. You are not unbreakable and you never had to be. And that is a good thing. And remember, if you need a safe space to cry or just rage out or laugh until you're wheezing, which happens a lot with me and Britt and our vocal cords, we're here. And you can join us on Instagram at I'd Like to Unsubscribe. And you can tell us what you're pissed off about this week. And you know what? We will be mad right alongside you.
Yeah, because that's what a good girlfriend is for. Who are we mad at this week? And it can be just autoimmune. So we love you, tribe. See you next time.